But let me go back to homosexuality. If you take fathers out of families, male children will experience male hunger. If you take, but because males are socialized to cover up your feelings, don't talk about what hurts. Little male children are almost socialized to say, I don't want my daddy, I haven't seen him, it doesn't make any difference. Well, it does make a difference. Male children need their fathers. They need their fathers to hold their hands, to walk with them. You may have some museum area here in Baltimore. Go and look on Saturday. You probably will see white males holding the hands of little 3-year-old white adult males holding the hands of little 3-year-old white males. And in that hand-holding process, male strength is passing out of the arm of the father into the hand of the little boy. And he begins to understand male strength. White supremacy also produces teenage pregnancy. So if a 14-year-old mother is holding a little baby and then later on you wonder, why is the little baby boy's hand weak? Because it was a weak hand that held him, not the arm of a man. The teenage mother is not bad. The father is not bad. We are all victims of this war. And to the extent that we don't understand the war or understand what it is, we will continue to be victimized by it. So the male child is hungering for father and hungering for father. And there's a whole lot of other male children on the block hungering for father and hungering for father. And I'm going to be real plain. And then there's some older males who hungered for father and hungered for father. And that hungering for father translates in the brain computer. I need some male substance. Well, where do I get male substance from symbolically? It is also because we are in the context of the white supremacy culture. And the white supremacy culture, the dominant form of sexual expression in Greece and Rome was male homosexuality. Do you understand me? The reason that that was the dominant form of sexual intercourse is because we ought to have a gigantic world map so you can see the colossus of the continent of Africa. And then see those little tiny countries of Europe sitting atop the colossus of Africa. So then you see that boot of Rome, Italy and Rome, and the islands of Greece. And so when those pale men looked over that Mediterranean and saw those great big tall black men, they went into a profound sense of male inadequacy. Why? Because those big tall black men in Africa could cause white genetic annihilation 35,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, up to the very moment that we are speaking. And this is why in this same white supremacy system and culture, updated, ball games are the major focus of attention. What? Simply reading it. Am I creating the culture or am I simply reading it? What does a white female say is her ideal mate at the time that she's yelling, rape, rape, he raped me and it was black? Who does she say is her ideal mate? Tall, dark, and handsome. Yet she accuses the black male of wanting to rape her. Valentine's Day is... Now this is the symbolism. What am I doing? I'm trying to pull out all of the symbolism that is is underneath the surface of this surface phenomena where we're walking around talking about what's happening. And we don't know why the men are dying. The men are dying because genocide is an imperative aspect of white supremacy. When it really begins to get shaken, it kills the black men so that there will be fewer people to threaten white genetic annihilation. And we are living in the midst of mass death right now. Mass death caused by drugs, chemical warfare weapons, deaths caused by AIDS, biological warfare weapons. Oh, we don't know where AIDS came from. Again, blaming the black man. Oh, it came from Africa. No, it came from a white supremacist in a laboratory who said this is the way we can get rid of a lot of these people. We can kill 50 million of them in Africa alone. And since we have accustomed them to death, we gave them 22 dead black male children in Atlanta and made them go into the church and pray about it. We killed 1,000 of them in Jonestown and made them say it was a church or some kind of cult retreat. 5,000 dead black men in that so-called commune in Oregon, picked up off of the streets of every major city. So when the men never came back and we didn't understand what white supremacy was, we just kept doing the electric slide and kept stepping. All of that was warfare of white supremacy against black people for the purpose of white genetic survival on the part of a tiny white minority on this planet that is genetic recessive to all of the black, brown, red, and yellow people.
What is good, my people? We are live, back with another live show. What's going on? Adult, what's up, Blue? Foundational Black American, what's going on? Metaphysic, my bad, I messed up your name, but yo, it's been a minute since I seen you. What's going on? But yeah, I just came on here to talk to y'all real quick. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I should do a live show or whatever. So, I know that a lot of y'all, and let me put the number up. So if anybody want to call in and speak their piece, what's going on, Pasta? So let me put the number up real quick. Yeah, Meta, yeah, my bad. But yeah, so yeah, I know I seen a lot of people talking about, what's going on with the whole Dave Chappelle thing, you know what I'm saying? And I want to, speak my piece on it. Now whether you like Dave Chappelle or not, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of not to what I'm saying, because it is what it is. Dave Chappelle has things about him. We all have things about him. But, I know he really doesn't care, but you see how quickly that other communities are to cancel him. Now, apparently one of the jokes that they're mad at was that he mentioned that the baby shot a person before, and I'm not talking about his specific thing because he said it's self-defense, and I don't know the ins and outs of his case or whatever, but you know they said you are quicker to get canceled for killing a black man than you are for hurting a gay person's feelings. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna even talk about what they should or what they shouldn't do. That's not my angle. What I want people to realize is look how they respond to you. Look at the things that they do. Now, they can't group this whole community, and that's one of the issues that we face about being black first. What identity we want to choose first in a society that uses every single identity as a weapon against you. We are in a society where we have no leverage, where we have no power, and we only have no leverage or no power because we give it away. We have all the leverage and the power that we need. But you see, it's nothing for them to speak out and try to cancel somebody. You know what I'm saying? Now, we got to start paying attention to how every time somebody reacts, why is it that we are the only ones that get held accountable? I'm not saying other groups can't say that whatever, but when you talk about black people, you can make jokes about the N-word. You could do all of this other stuff. They went out there defending Kramer, you know what I'm saying? Well, it's freedom of speech and all of that, but you offend another community, all of a sudden people understand. You say something about the Jewish community, all of a sudden people understand. You say something about LG, whatever, people understand, right? But they act like it's not racism all in that community as well. Like when the dude was going around with a bunch of dead gay black dudes in his home, you know what I'm saying? Like racism didn't play a part in that. We got to stop acting like it's not in every single aspect of what is going on. Now, like I'm not here to say whether the science behind homosexuality, whether people born that way, whether they was, made that way. That's not my job, but I do know that there is an agenda when you have black men who saying they got blackballed out of the community or out of something because they didn't want to wear a dress. When I look on TV, all you see is negative or weak images of black men, of our homes being broken. That is to show us that our community is weak. And I do have a problem with, sir, and how so easily so many black people, it rolls off the tongue like that white daddy stuff. Nobody should ever say that. I feel a little defeated just saying that right now. None of us should ever be saying stuff like that. But the brainwashing and the deviant stuff, and I'm not saying that is deviant, but when you commit crimes against other people, that is devious. But all of that kind of stuff has a connection with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like what we let and identify as our culture, what we protect in that culture, who we protect in that culture, right? The stories that we believe in. The fact is, we've been letting a lot of stuff slide this entire time. You know what I'm saying? When somebody can come into your home and rape your woman and you can't do nothing about it, I mean, the facts is they're going to lose some kind of respect for you. Now, they're showing you right now that they can say anything. The first quote unquote black president, you know what I'm saying, who got into office, he passed every single thing for the LGBT community or whatever, even though he ran off of his blackness and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But he did pass a lot of laws and all of that stuff to protect them. But the point is, I don't care what other communities do. I know that he tried to portray himself as a black man, but could not say that he was black. He had to apologize for saying Trayvon Martin would look like his son, which he probably would. He had to apologize for that 5 years after the fact, right? After Joe Biden is in office, by the way, 5 years after the fact, he said, well, I do think black people deserve reparations. But when you asked him at the time, he said, oh, well, schools need to be rebuilt, schools in our community and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But the whole point is, guess who allows that kind of stuff? Because look who we are still out here supporting. You know what I'm saying? We're still fighting and talking about the lesser of two evils, even though they always try to identify you with other groups, but then will help every other group within that dynamic except for you. Now you're standing up for everybody's rights but your own. And they use this LBG thing as a tool to say that you are hateful too. Look at you. You are racist. You know what I'm saying? Or they would call it homophobic, as if they aren't blackophobic. You know what I'm saying? As if they don't. Most of these slave owners back then, they were straight gay. You know what I'm saying? They was raping, molesting, doing all of this kind of stuff, but they inbred all of that trauma where we doing sick stuff to our own community. And we're embracing that. Well, we not embraced it, but after generation to generation, we let it keep getting passed down, right? And then not to make excuses for nobody, but mentally ill people or people who have been harmed or violated, oftentimes they go on to violate or harm somebody else because that's just the way trauma works. And then we hide all of this stuff far too often in our community. But I'm saying, look at how they do this because, I overheard, like, I was in a barber shop and I overheard a conversation they was having. It was like, oh, yeah, you offend the black community, the gay community. I'll make a bunch of phone calls and a bunch of people will come here right now and shut your business down. But he also said, I could make a bunch of phone calls and have a bunch of people come support your business. Now, that's the real power in what their movement is. The question is, why don't our quote unquote movements have any power or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Um, Now let me put the link in the chat real quick because if anybody got something to say on this topic, because like I said, I'm not gonna be on here too long. But the way that other groups stay on code is how they are able to enforce it. Right now, he can't really be canceled unless all gay people agree, oh, we're not doing this, and it somehow affects his business. Right? But the fact that they could put out a call like that and so many people will respond. Now, if one of us was to put out a call, you will receive every kind of backlash and all that kind of stuff possible. And I'm not saying worry about their hatred of us. I'm saying worry about our feelings about ourselves. Because there's no reason why, if we say we need to get on code against this person because they're anti us, they have black phobia, right? We all show up and shut it down or whatever, right? And there's no excuse or no reason why that shouldn't happen. But there is and I know a lot of other people is talking about the topic. That's why I'm not gonna really stay on this too long, and I'm not gonna be on here too long. But it's the mentality that we need to really start learning from. You understand? Because we still finding every single reason why we cannot get on the same code. Now the problem is, what are we? Are we going to be black first, or are you going to be sexual identity first? Are you going to be where I'm from first? Are you going to be what I believe first? Or are you going to realize we are in a society that puts us all in the same category as one big Negro, right? But we don't even understand that. Because you see, we have a problem fighting, and this is what I don't do, is fight for other groups. And you see these Taliban, the Afghan refugees coming here, right? Do you see the difference? They're getting $6.3 billion to resettle, right? Paying for everything, including translators for them. You understand? But black refugees is getting whipped at the border. You know what I'm saying? Like it's 1821. And the funds that they have for them is a part of a larger package, right? Where they're trying to work on to get $28.6 billion in relief for them. So guess where that money is literally coming from? It's coming from out of your pockets. You are paying that tax money, and when people talk about reparations, they just try to make it a joke, like, oh yeah, black people just get one big check, they'll just give it right back. But a part of that is not paying taxes to somebody else's community, paying taxes to ourselves so we can build our own communities, so we can build these things, because it is true that we need our own police forces that we can call, not call some system that we're all the same to them, right? Where you call as a victim and they're treating you like a suspect. We are not going to be powerful enough to enforce anything on anybody until we have our own protection, our own police force, But what I'm saying is, look at how they do. Instead of getting mad about how people react, look at how they react and take the things that works and apply it to yours. Right? How they stay on code. How when one person say, "Let's do this," they'll all get on that code. How they say, "Let's not support this business," or "Let's do support this business." Right? They are lobbying with money and all of that other kind of stuff. And see, as long as they can mix agendas and mix all of the kind of stuff, and you not standing on one thing, on a identity that you all agree on, then it's gonna be easy to keep getting you mixed up, fighting each other, fighting yourselves. And we can see what they're doing for Arabs right now, but they give you every excuse why they can't do it for you. And it's not just black people in America. You see what they're doing to the Haitian immigrants. But as long as we suffer from this black phobia that has been created, then of course it's going to be easier to beat them there and then come over here and beat us. Right, exactly. They do it in our face and tell us it's not happening. They create propaganda just like in the 20s by spreading lies with truth to confess and keep people arguing. That's the thing, to tell half truths, half stories. And people don't do their own research to go find out for themselves. The system is more so designed to keep them up, but the only way that they can stay up and stay powerful is if you are weak. That's the thing. Like, we talk about white supremacy, but that can only be defined by black inferiority. But black inferiority can only be defined by you. Of course, they create the propaganda. They have been created. He who controls the narrative controls all of this stuff, and you can judge by what you can and can't say about somebody. If you say something about Jewish people, you're going to get quote unquote canceled. If you say something about gay people, you're going to get quote unquote canceled. But you can go on TV and say your opinions about what N words want to say, right? And I'm not gonna say N words because they say nigga, right? But they can say that and it's all good, right? Michael Jackson say something in a song about Jewish people, not even the diss, and they try to come after his throat. Jada Kiss say something about him. They try to take the line out, but they can say nigga in their records all day. They can talk about killing and robbing and doing all that kind of stuff all day. It's about what these other groups allow and what we don't allow, right? Because at the end of the day, we are allowing that stuff to happen because nobody has power over you unless you give it to them. Now, I will say that, yeah, after generation and generation and generation of being beaten down and all of that kind of stuff, and that's why they have to try to make it look like you're homophobic. Like you hate somebody or whatever. Now, like I said, I don't got no particular issues with what anybody does, but let's not sit here and pretend like they really didn't take the biggest man or somebody who was rebelling, quote unquote, and they didn't tie him down and then rape him in front of everybody to send a message, including his wife and children, right? And then get another slave to do it or threaten to kill him and his wife and children, right? And then if another gay white dude was around, they would get him to do the same thing just to break him down in his mentality, right? We're going to ignore all of the stuff that they've done in the past. We're going to ignore J. Edgar Hoover, who made his claim to fame after going after Marcus Garvey, which is why they gave him the FBI, right? To help him stop the rise of the Black Messiah. But they'll be mad about me calling him a faggot and not the things that he did. Not about COINTELPRO, but the things that you call him. I mean, that's called gaslighting. But at the end of the day, who cares what anybody else feel? Because those other groups don't care what we feel when they go out and demand what they demand. They're not thinking about you. It's not people of color when Afghan people get $6.3 billion, right? It's not people of color when you get stop hate bills. It's only people of color when we start talking about reparations, when we start talking about, anti-crime bills, right? Everybody's been through something in history when we start talking about Black history, but you realize they don't try to stop other people from talking about that other history. They only try to stop you from talking about that history. I wonder why. Because if you start learning from history, you'll see that, oh man, like even during those times, we had a lot more successes than we ever could imagine, right? We wasn't just sitting there taking it. People was fighting back from day one, right? I mean, even before in the early 1530s, right? The first dude to come over here to claim the land for Spain, he got killed, right? Because the people wasn't playing that stuff. But after generation and generation and generation, now we like, oh, people of color, because we feel like, oh, well, maybe we know we ain't gonna get nothing done for Black people, but that's a lack of hope in our own selves. That's something you gotta learn how to come through with yourself. And we're so busy, because we didn't call Clinton the first Black president, right? We still argue with each other about Obama or whatever. But I mean, his actions speak for itself. What's going on, Raw? You know, and now you got a lot of Black people out here that have to defend all the stuff that they said about Joe Biden. People that was calling us irresponsible for talking about, what I'm saying, Joe Biden. But look what he's doing, right? They definitely make us characters. And, that's why people talk about, the first good depiction was the movie, Black Panther, right? Of a Black superhero, somebody that wasn't a pimp, a killer, a thug, a prostitute, right? And even in that movie, right, the Black people who were the heroes, right, went against their own people to help the FBI not give weapons to Black people around the world to free themselves, right? They helped the white FBI guy who was the hero when they were sending out weapons. I mean, his image stuff and everything. That's why it's important for them to make an example out of you, right? To say, oh, I'm highly offended. Don't say that no more. That's a display of power, right? Try to show a force of control over somebody. That's not by accident. And while we argue with each other about Joe Biden, I mean, just look at what's happened under his command. The Haitian president assassinated in his own bed, right? Country destabilized, right? Then you have those immigrants coming here getting whipped on horses, like, they just having fun with it, right? The Afghan stuff, right? There, another country destabilized. And he gives them $6.3 billion to come over here to get settled. I'm just saying. Then he wants to set a mandate for everybody here, even though it's supposed to be against their own laws. Because it's not about right and wrong. It's not about fair. It's not about good. It's about power and control. And for us, it should be about self-autonomy. But, he can make a mandate to make everybody, do something. And then whether you want to or not, a lot of people feel stuck because, they may have children, right? Because they'll take your children away, right? You may feel like, oh, I need my job. That's the way that they do things. They can always say, I didn't make anybody do anything. You chose it. But what they do is give you the choice of death or my way. right? Because I guess in the mind of a psychopath, they need plausible deniability. You chose this, even though I really gave you no choice. Because they always look for loopholes, even in their own stuff, or they'll just change it if they can't find one. Because that's not what it's about. And then to add insult to injury, he just cut the funding to HBCUs, you know what I'm saying? Which shows you because there's no way that he could be able to defund black schools if we was doing what we supposed to do. Now, yeah, they take our tax money, and that tax money we want back circulated into our community, but we won't fight for even anything, right? Whether it be somebody calling you nigga or us saying nigga, right? You got to stand for something in order to make a change. Now, they can say, oh, yeah, I don't like Dave Chappelle saying what he said, right? Like how a transgender got classified as the woman of the year, as his first year as a woman. That's what's up, Pasta. That's what we all got to do. Because at the end of the day, that's what they do. They give you no choice. They give you just enough to where you're not going to be able to save long term, right? Unless you cut down on everything. They give you enough to go back home, maybe get some gas. Maybe you can go out a Friday afternoon, but after that, you're struggling for the rest of the week. That's not by accident. It's not by accident. They don't teach how to work or be owners. They teach you how to be workers. Do you think that's what they're teaching in private schools? They're teaching their sons money, how to budget, how to spend, how to start businesses, right? They worry about connects, but the problem that we have is we don't think us being each other's connects is good enough. Because one thing that happened during the integration thing, right? The whole thing was to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson, which is separate but equal. You know what I'm saying? And that's why if anybody say that you're being racist, tell them see Plessy versus Ferguson, right? Because it's supposed to be separate but equal, right? But we all know that it was not equal, even though it was definitely separate. Now, the goal was not to get their same things in the beginning. In the original court case that Thurgood Marshall won was for equal funding, but still separate schools. They were supposed to, abide by separate but equal because they were still taking their tax money the same way they do today. And this is what you got to pay attention to because it's not like the schools are not desegregated. You may have two white people in the black school and two black people in the white school, but it's not desegregated. But the purpose of Plessy versus Ferguson or the Thurgood Marshall case was to get that equal funding for black schools, to get equal funding for black water fountains, for whatever. And you got to understand, back then they had to teach schools out of like pretty much an outhouse, and Jet Magazine was their textbooks. And back then, Jet Magazine showed real black history stuff, but that was their textbooks, and they won that case. But what Thurgood Marshall said was, we could never be equal if we don't have the same connects, right? If I go to a white institution like Harvard or Yale, which, by the way, we know that money comes from slavery, right? But if I go to one of those institutions, I'll have better connects or more connects than if I go to a black school, right? And that's why he kept going with the case that he did. You know what I'm saying? So they had the equal funding, but he said there's no way that that's equal if you don't have the same connects, because far too often we don't have that same kind of faith in each other. Like all of y'all can't be the best at whatever craft you're doing, right? And we look at our own businesses as something that's a problem. What's going on, BZ Douglas?
Hey, I was just distracted myself from some work and saw you were live, and I appreciated your channel. I came across show of yours when you discussed Luke Stewart's killing.
Okay.
So I'm a journalist and I'm independent in Cleveland. And what you were talking about with the worker mindset is something I'm struggling with a lot, as far as like striking out on my own and how to, be my own boss or whatever, and being used to like, here's what you do with your day, and applying it towards covering stories like I just released a documentary with Black Lives Matter Cleveland called State of Injustice that's started with the Luke Stewart story, but really snowballed into just how colossally awful the whole police department is and how indifferent the city council was.
Okay. And let me ask you this, like, how do y'all get funding or whatever?
Well, the funding was totally crowdsourced, and really it didn't pay for a lot of the time as I saw it, because I'm approaching journalism learning by doing, which is how I developed my first career in, like, as a web developer. And so I started covering, I got close to Black Lives Matter on my first story here in Cleveland. And I don't know where you're based out of. I don't know. I know you covered the Luke Stewart story, but I don't know if you're based in Ohio or the area.
No, I'm not in Ohio.
Yeah. So I was covering them, and when I first started just doing the work, I was like, well, how do I find stories? And initially it was the summer of George Floyd, and there was just event after event going on. So I was going out covering protests, rallies.
Hold on. So what made you want to like start just covering Black stories?
Honestly, well, it was the moment of the time and just seeing the need for it. But my first story is what kind of threw me into journalism. I was online, reading something, and I came across this thread where someone was calling out a really shady organizer in Oklahoma City that they thought was a law enforcement officer, and had all this like video of it and just talked about what was going on. And then further down in the thread, someone mentioned that they found someone equally shady here in Cleveland, and I ended up, long story short, took it seriously and reached out to the person, and ended up through, I knew some activists in Cleveland, I knew some journalists, and was able to, what it boiled down to is this person was claiming that he had a close personal relationship with Tamir Rice's mother, Samaria, and had this long Facebook post about how some people were questioning this person's motives for putting on, they were organizing a fundraiser, a big, I don't know what you'd call it. It was like a barbecue cookout celebration for Tamir Rice in Cadell Park, where he was shot. And he told everyone in this Facebook post that,
hey, let me ask you this, like, like, is most of the people in like your organization, are they like Black or white, or is it like mixed or whatever?
I'm not in an organization myself. I'm independent.
I thought you said you was with Black.
No, I work with them on a documentary, and the way when I say like that, really is just came about that they were the ones who set the documentary in motion. So I don't know if this is sprawling, but my first story was basically boiled down to, I busted somebody claiming this one thing they weren't, and being drawing attention away from like really legitimate events. Like the event he held that day, not only did it not have Samaria Rice's blessing, and she was not happy to learn about it when I spoke to her, but then also on the same day, there was a huge rally for Desmond Franklin, who was killed by an off-duty Cleveland police officer. And so on the exact same day, there were these two events. Brandon Patterson's was this unsanctioned, really had no point event in Cadell Park for Tamir Rice that his mother did not want. And then the other event was pointedly like going and trying to demand that Cleveland address a current injustice that had recently happened. And the interesting thing about all this to me is that, like, if you look at the news coverage, this event, the one that was just like didn't have much of a pointed ask or a demand of the system in any way, it got about 50 seconds of play on the news, and the one for Desmond Franklin got 10 seconds. They like mentioned that it happened. So in my article, how I first had developed a relationship with Black Lives Matter Cleveland was that I had recently looked at the work they were doing and how they were organizing and how they approach families specifically. Because we have a lot of victims of violence here in Cleveland, and just found that they had a lot of credibility in how they were approaching things. And so I talked to them about, what this organizer, the shady organizer in Cleveland was doing versus how they did things. And since then, I've just found them more credible, and I've paid attention to them. They were the ones who set off in motion the documentary State of Injustice, which I'm hoping to just be a rolling project about how systemically corrupt Ohio is. And it was basically the co-founder Kareem Henton. After a rally I watched him speak at, I was chatting with him, and he mentioned that the family of Luke Stewart was hoping that someone would put something out there to make the case have, some more life in the press, because everybody had kind of forgotten about it. And so he told us, well, he gave us Tara's phone number. Tara Stewart is the sister of Luke, and we spoke to her attorney. I happen to have a friend that lived in the neighborhood who has done documentary filmmaking and works as a videographer. So I called him, and we're both just, at the time I was someone who had decided to jump into journalism. So I was like, well, this is a thing to do. And so I leveraged my connection with him and said, do you want to help me shoot this? Because I don't know anything about shooting interviews and making it look decent.
Well, yeah, let me say this, because I don't even know if you like really be watching my channel or whatever, because like me personally, I go kind of harder on like the liberals, because it's like no difference to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, they talk a lot of stuff, but you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day, like you said, Black Lives Matter, they get crowdfunding, but like, do you you get crowdfunding too, or you pay for yourself?
Well, I only go crowdfunding, but really I pay my bills still through web development, and I'm kind of treating this as like, if I'm learning by doing, this is me going through college, is just doing the work. And I'm, as far as my political alignment, I don't have a home politically, and I share your frustration with liberals to a big degree, and more I would say I identify as an anarchist, and I have nothing but love for a lot of my socialist and communist friends. Some of my best sources are socialists and communists, but I haven't done the reading to be like, yeah, I'm sure. But anarchy, the more I've learned about it as a political philosophy, it gives me a coherent framework for the world, like how I view things politically, how I address authority, how I parent. And certainly being someone who is constantly questioning of authority is an appropriate posture for a journalist, I would think.
Right. So basically, yeah, you kind of want like the destruction of America or whatever, right?
No, I don't want the destruction of America. I mean, I'm more in the mold of an anarchist of, Noam Chomsky, who's just isn't deterred by, status and titles that have been assigned by our system, and unflinchingly questions what's been told in the narrative. I don't know, like, I think that's where I differ with a lot of leftists and socialists or people on certain political extremes, is when there's the certainty, like, this is what we need to do. I'm like, I don't know. I know this isn't working in a lot of ways. I can identify all those. And I know there's a lot of things we don't try.
Like what should we try? Like let me ask you, right? Do you feel, well, I'm pretty sure you'll say yeah, but like Trayvon Martin, you know who that is?
Yeah.
Do you think that was like what happened? He should have whatever his name is, should have walked away?
Do I think the
Zimmerman?
Yeah, Zimmerman should have left him alone.
No, that it was okay that he wasn't like put in jail.
No.
Okay, yeah, you think he should be charged and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, to whatever extent, I know I'm coming in cold on this, and I'm not a long time listener, but yeah, however I can prove my bona fides as an ally or coming at this,
Right.
and as far as I can sense a lot of skepticism about like BLM, I think it's really important for people to understand that. Well, as far as Cleveland, they're their own thing, and that's how it goes in a lot of cities, and here in Cleveland. Samaria Rice and BLM Cleveland have both been very vocal in how little credibility they find in the global network, and a lot of people, a lot of people that people reflexively flock to as like leaders of Black Lives Matter on a national scale.
So do they like they get donation crowdfunding, but do Tamir Rice's mom get any of that, or like what do they do for the families that they're raising money for?
Well, I can tell you, like when I'm around in Black Lives Matter, working with them on like the documentary, if meetings are usually interrupted because they're helping somebody navigate the bail system in Cleveland. They are directly passing money along to people. I've been to the co-founder's house. It's a modest little place with just like a small yard for his kid to play around on. As far as vetting Black Lives Matter Cleveland, as far as like, are they credible? Do they get, when they get money from and they're donated directly to where does it go? It's not going in their pockets. They're not living large off of it. And when I'm there, unless like they're putting on some crazy song and dance when I'm around, like let's make it look like we're helping people.
Okay. And yeah, well, let me ask you this. You like as far as like it goes, because you said no, I don't want America to be destroyed. Like do you first of all, do you agree with like reparations?
Yes.
And what do you think Black people should like? It should be like what?
Well, I as far as how it monetarily works out, where I think that would all develop. I mean, that can all be sorted out as the semantics of what is materially owed. I think what will make that happen is just having a public reconciliation. And that goes for so many of the sins of America. When I say I don't want to see America destroyed, I guess I was talking, when I try and talk to my kids about politics, they're 6 and or they're 8 and 10. And, I say like, well, I like the idea of America I was told when I was your age. It's freedom and we don't believe in this.
Oh, we was told two different Americas when we was probably my age.
Like, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, that was all you had to say?
Well, I mean, I was letting you.
Oh, no, I was just saying, yeah, because you said I told my children, yeah, I wanted it to be what I was told, but I was like, yeah, we was told two different things, so.
Well, yeah. And my kids are very aware of the work I do. Like when I first started working on my very first story, since it involved Tamir Rice, and I was telling them about the story I worked, I told them the story of Tamir Rice, and how wrong it is what happened, and he's not a unique occurrence here in Cleveland.
Right. So, how they say, we need to start over, and like the past is the past. You agree with that?
And I mean, it's sort of a vague statement in terms of like we need to. No, we don't need to move forward. Like right. I think we need to stop and recognize the crimes of the powerful.
Right. But I mean, like, you benefit too from that, right?
I don't want to.
But I mean, I'm just saying, do you? It's not the right or wrong. I'm just saying.
No, I'm saying I do. And that's something like as a white parent, I point out to my kids when when we hang out with people. Especially when we're hanging out with my Black activists and Black friends that are around, and they're friends with their kids, I'll have frank conversation with like, do you realize that Jamil doesn't have to go through, or what his life can be like, how he can just unluckily walk past the wrong fucking person, And sorry if getting kind of
Yeah,
imagining.
you're all right. You're all right. Yeah, you're all right. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to me, as much as like having had kids and a family will limit a lot of your options if you are radically inclined, as politically, as far as how much you can throw yourself into the movement. It certainly feels like a daily act of activism to just raise kids to like know the truth about the world. Because I had to find out on my own when I was 20. Like 9/11 happened, I realized I didn't know a damn thing, and I just started. It was like, oh shit,
Right.
I don't know what's going on in the world, and
Right.
I guess thankfully I have a curious mind, and that's the thing that plagues, I think, a lot. There's a lot of systemic effort put into keeping people from being curious,
Right.
and questioning authority.
So would you give up like all the stuff that you have, like that, because the only way you could like make up for the inequality, you know what I'm saying, like, oh, we start over or whatever. That's why I was saying, would you start over? But like,
Well, I mean, I'm benefiting from a lot of cultural inequality, but I think we're all in the same sinking end of the boat with wealth inequality. Granted, you're up to your neck, but I'm up to my waist. But none of us are doing well, and the people who really will be stripped of a lot of their wealth, are people that would equalize things.
well, it was like the poor whites who like committed like the most violence and stuff. It wasn't like the wealthy people. Yeah, they get over on everybody. Yeah, sure, but it was like the poor whites who was like doing the
Sure.
riots because they couldn't compete with like jobs and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know like you kind of like distance or whatever, but like you said, you benefit from it. But that's why I'm saying, would you be willing? You don't want America to be destroyed or nothing like that, but I mean, like, what would you be willing to do to like because you wouldn't be willing to give up anything personally yourself, would you?
I mean, if I was asked to, if I was put in the situation where doing so was like I can see clearly like making this sacrifice makes a difference, I would hope so. I don't know, as far as recklessly throwing my life away,
No.
I'm throwing my life into, journalism was something I slowly realized was something I really liked doing. I had previous stints in it in different capacities, just sort of on a citizen level. And then once I had this one story just thrown into my lap, and I tried to get other people to write it, and journalists I knew, they're like, yeah, this is a real thing, but I'm busy. And then so far I've done nothing but gain credibility with the sources that I work with and cover. And I'm certainly like, whatever, I'm, pulling in as, in crowdfunding or whatever amount of like audience I have. My biggest metric of success is that I have sources that are really thankful I at least like listen to them. And there's a lot of stories I've already like had come to me that I like can't work, but I keep in the touch with them because no other journalist is listening to them. People
Right.
who are trying to navigate wrongful prosecutions and have family members in jail, or are, were even like ex prison guards who were racially discriminated against and pushed out, and they feel that like the whole system like sort of like quickly coalesced against them.
Right. And I know you say you work independent, but like, who do you like publish with?
Well, my first story was published in Cleveland Scene, which is the local alt, and I had a friend of a friend was able to like tell me how to navigate that. Like, well, here's what you should put together for a pitch, and they went with that. I've also had some one piece in a small local called the Cleveland Observer. For the most part, I've really just published independently on my Substack, and I put out independent video reports on my YouTube channel. I have a new one about, do you know about the Vincent Belmonte case here in Cleveland, East Cleveland?
No.
He was shot in the back of the head, in the back, and the side, and he was running from the police, which in East Cleveland is now become like this running, like story, and it's a constant struggle with people there. And so, but the main like thing in the story that I didn't think the news media called out enough, and someone I work with who's a really great legal activist here in East Cleveland that I work with, she was the one who said, you know, will you do something really on Belmonte's story? And so I had all the body cam footage, and I put together like an analysis of why the officer's story, which is that Vincent at the last minute turned around and fired, you know, or, you know, tried to shoot the officer, and that's why he shot him 4 times. But the bigger thing about the officer is, like, in the whole year prior, like almost exactly a year prior, he had been put on probation for a year for letting a woman out of jail on promise if she promised to go on a date with him. Then in like November, or October, 10 months later, he gets busted on body cam by another officer trying to pinch weed out of the evidence that had just been seized in an arrest. And then the officer like kicks him with his foot, trying to say, hey, you're on camera, but ultimately goes and reports it. And I did a video report just on that, because the guy that was investigating it was his own bag, like, you know, can of worms, with the fact that he was ex Blackwater, had been like, for someone who, you know, like I've dug deep into Luke Stewart's story, which, with anyone who doesn't know, he was sleeping in his car and 2 officers showed up and just tried to yank him out and ended up killing him. He is doing nothing. So this officer from East Cleveland, Marche, that was supposed to be investigating wrongdoing, he was caught by police in Bracknell on body cam, asleep at the wheel on like drugs and intoxicated, tried to drive off immediately. He didn't get shot and killed. And he had a whole kit of like his SWAT kit in the trunk at the time. And there's footage of him threatening the officer that arrested him, like, you better not come to my side of town. Anyway, East Cleveland's a mess. So that's my most recent report, is on Vincent Belmonte, and the fact that the officer that shot him should have never been on the street that day. And the most damning part of the whole story is the fact that he was under specific request by the city council vice president, and the mayor totally like agreed to it, that he will not be doing his job without his body cam on. If he has any interaction, or the second he's on a call, well, the day he shot Vincent, it's on for 3 seconds of Larry McDonald running, and it turns off right before he's killed. And for all those reasons, at the very least, you know, people are going to argue about whether or not, you know, it's possible that Vincent actually turned around and threatened this guy. I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely based on the physical evidence. But the point remains, McDonald should not have been on the street that day. And that's what I tried to hammer home with my piece, and then really amplifying the words of local activists around here.
All right. Let me ask you, you know, one more question, and then, you know, well,
thanks for having me on for so long, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask. Like, I know you saw my video about like the brother shooting or whatever. Did you watch, first of all, did you watch like any other videos, or that was it?
That was it. It's just more like I was on YouTube and saw you were live, and then that you had like a studio link, and I was just like, oh, I never talked to anybody on stuff. You know, I'm not good at getting out and promoting my stuff. Is like I do the work, and then I'm trying to figure out how to share it more and get it out there.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, like, what made you come on here? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I've appreciated the commentary I've heard so far, you know, I appreciated anyone that was putting out anything about that story, honestly, because I think more people should know about it.
Right.
And that was the whole reason that, you know, I took it on. And
yeah, and I will let you say this. I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let you say whatever, and then, you know, because I'm not gonna be on here that much longer anyway. But me personally, because like these police shootings, yeah, I talk about them, but that's just one aspect of what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole thing, because, like, you know, it's the drug industry, the food industry. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the like how the FDA is suing black farmers right now. You know what I'm saying? We have issues in our communities where our parents are having diabetes at 50 years old. You know, it's the fact, it's a psychological thing that you have people on your money that would have lynched you for saying the stuff that we would have said. You know what I'm saying? So when I talk about police shootings and police killings, that's one aspect. And it's sick that that's just one aspect. But we are talking about it in every single aspect of it. And when I say, you know, about a system being destroyed or whatever, you can't take the root out of something. Like if I take a root out of a tree, the tree is going to die. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure you would admit that the root of this country, they got a psychopathic, you know, pedophiles on the side of a mountain. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if you think we should take George Washington down or Thomas Jefferson, but they had children with children. You know what I'm saying? They had babies with babies, and they were psychopathic killers. It's no different, because they like to say, you know, they would call you a Marxist or whatever, but people don't even realize Karl Marx was a racist person just like the rest of them to us. You know what I'm saying? There's no difference to me between Hitler, George Washington, Karl Marx, none of them. You know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't necessarily tell people, like, because, you know, I think that you should have the conversation that you have, and I think that your community should have it with each other or whatever, you know. But we have it in our communities because it's a much larger issue than the whole thing, you know. And I couldn't tell somebody like to fund your business or what you're doing, because we have an issue funding ourselves, because all of this self-hate that's built in our community. Like you said, you could go to your 20 years old and not have to worry about what's going on, but you know, we have to tell our kids, oh yeah, don't you know, they're putting 5-year-olds on the ground, you know. A young 9-year-old girl in Detroit was shot by the police when they raided the wrong house, and nothing happened to him. It's a whole system of that, you know. And I do think that more people should maybe have your you know, ideology or whatever, if they, you know, whatever. But I think that should be more forums and all of that discussions you should be having with more people like-minded like you, that kind of look like you, because we already know all of this stuff that you're saying. But you know, and the issue with the Black Lives Matter thing, you know, because like you said, it's no you know, they go off of this crowdfunding, but a lot of these families are complaining that they're not doing anything when we could have just funded the family. And all of these organizations and we have to be careful as a group, us, because all of the organizations that have been able to stay around is a reason. Like the Black Panthers were destroyed by the federal government, but the NAACP been around since the 1900s, early 1800s. But it was a white person, a Jewish person, who founded the NAACP, you know, and they haven't been the same since before World War I. You know what I'm saying? So they are able to stay around, and we have to be careful about organizations like that, because they mean you no harm, and we are about self-autonomy, which, you know, the corporation of America is not about, you know, for anybody, but especially us. So.
Well, I really appreciate, and I'm gonna put you on more, because I can really appreciate the fact that you have the zeitgeist is what you're focusing on and what you're talking about. And with the work I'm doing as a journalist, I get the blinders on. Honestly, it's been nice to sort of, I used to have just a compulsion to take in all the news wherever my head, you know, led me. This puts the blinders on a bit, and I'll just kind of narrowly focus on problems here. I'm with you on, like, it's systemic. I have a problem. Like, one of my biggest like beefs with like Marxists, and I'm like, you know what? You got to take the dude's name out of it. I'm not going to get behind the dude's name. Like, ultimately, like, I think that's something, an inclination that makes me say, like, them probably closer to anarchist. If I were going to coin my own term, it would be anarcho-curious, because I don't, you know, the frustration I'll have with a lot of socialists or a lot of people that are like sure that this is the answer is like, yeah, but that's someone that thought of things way back when, and we're living now. Like, what ideas are lying around now that aren't being tried, that aren't being considered? And certainly not being afraid to, which I think I would share the criticism with you, that there are a lot of white allies that will come to these issues thinking like, well, I want to make things better within reason. It's like, I think it's not an easy thing to do, but it's if we're going to be as a species adults, like you said, we need to get to the root of things, no matter how uncomfortable it might be for a lot of people. But anyway, that's all I'll leave you with, is that, I'm not looking for, as far as crowdfunding, any support from anyone that can't do it. But I do feel that my posture, the fact that I am an unabashed radical in whatever sense, whatever I'm classified as, is just going to keep me out of trying to be a part of any traditional news outlet, the local one. I'm not entirely sure I want to be a part of one, because I've already heard enough stories from younger reporters about editors telling them, oh, I was covering the Vincent Belmonte thing or this other story, and I was told I couldn't go hard at this police officer's history. I had to leave that out. Like, I'm too old to be hearing that kind of shit from anyone, even if I'm only a year or so into this.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I appreciate you coming on, answering the questions or whatever. But yeah, what's going on? Time to work. But yeah, like that was all I was gonna say. But yeah, like I said, I can't vouch or whatever, because like I don't really know you or whatever, and I can't say that you aren't. But it's like you said, because a lot of people will use. I'm not sure if you would, but I would guess that you would use Martin Luther King. But it was Martin Luther King who said, beware of the white liberal, because they are the one who wants to maintain, sort of like what you just said. The white liberal is the one who want to maintain status quo, and they're more dangerous than the Klan member or whatever. And you said that, that's why I asked about, like, what would you be willing to sacrifice? So I mean, I understand that America is your safety. What I'm saying, at the end of the day, is the reason why you have a privilege, and I wouldn't say that you're wrong for wanting to keep that privilege, but at the end of the day, that I understand that is your safety net. So you just got to be careful, like.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for having me on. Have a good night.
All right. All right, yeah, what's going on? Time to work. Yeah, if anybody want to call in or got something to say, I mean, I'm telling you, they be watching us and what we say, but again, at the end of the day, we are all we got, because we understand how their media works, right? Because like he said, nobody's going to tell him that, so I'm not talking about anybody specifically, but when you look at these stories in the field that he is in, right, because we just looking at the story the other day, the little girl got hit by a pole by a racist little white boy. They said the alleged attack, we know it's not hate, how they put the picture of the little black girl out, but they will not put the picture of the 25-year-old who they call a little boy. When I'm not saying that particular case, but you can have, like with the Olympics, a 32-year-old man, and they call him a child, because that's the way that their media works, and you have to stay on a specific code. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, most of them are not going to give up that baseline privilege, because the system of America, even though it exploits them, it offers them a level of protection. Because like Real Life was trying to say the other day in the chat, that, what's going to happen when, the America comes and we're no longer safe. Like, we're supposed to be the ones to fight for a system where we're the only ones who are not safe. Now, I'm not sure how the guy who just came on here feel about the Joe Biden and the whole thing. He tried not to be affiliated. And I noticed, because the other last white boy, Mac, tried to not affiliate themselves with the identity. Real Life tried to do that. But they often stay vague, you know what I'm saying? But you just got to take it for what it is, And that's why I'm talking about people like, because you have people like Sean King, who has raised $30 million off of black issues, and black people have a mindset where they'll give a white person way more than they would a black person, and they will call them out way less for scamming the people. Like this dude pull up in a big house, right? He's this liberal person who's all about black issues, and he makes a living off of that. And the guy came on here, like, I'm not going to ask anybody for crowdfunding, but he brought up the crowdfunding, and I asked him first about the crowdfunding, but at the end, he did bring it up, and I'm not saying that he's doing that, because like I said, I don't know him, but I do know that Sean King had got a new house, a big house, where he had to move out because so many people, Europeans, were calling him out on it. But we'll be quick to fund these people brands and their funds and all of that kind of stuff. But a Black person will give them the least amount of money that we can and give them the least amount of time to work miracles. Right. And, anybody can come on. I'm not going to block anybody from coming on. And I'm going to try to learn from your perspective, because I think that we should be listening to all of the stuff that they say. Now, we see two different aspects, but the thing that they agree on was, no, I don't want America to be destroyed. No, I love America. You know what I'm saying? We just need to, because the white boy Matt, who said he's not racist, we need to rebuild America. The guy just came on, we just need to restructure America. But you can't take the root out of something and still have it be the same, right? You have people who are murderers, molesters, child molesters, right? Psychopathic killers who you put on the side of a mountain. That shows you about the society. When you can keep having racist officials elected over and over and over and over and over, it shows you about the majority of the society. In the context that I'm talking about, right? But we're not talking about in just this context. We're talking about our lives. I'm not saying you, BZ Douglas, are doing this, but they make our lives a political issue. This ain't no political issue. Like, so when you're writing about these stories, you're writing about our lives, right? This could happen to any one of us at any single time. Our children, we could get pulled over with our children in the car and they violate us, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So in every single context, this system has to be destroyed. Now, I understand that it has a certain level of protection for you, but that's what I'm trying to get our people to understand. We have to have a certain level of protection for our own people. And when we talk about Black Lives Matter, right, we're saying, what's going on, Seymour? What's going on, my brother? But when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we're saying, don't shoot me, don't kill me. We're not making a political statement, right? We're saying that this system, the police that you want to restructure, was built from the ground as slave catchers. That was the number one priority, right? They created laws called the pig law, where, in Mississippi, a person would get a violation for stealing something as small as a pig. What? Political enemies of folks on the mountain? No. Well, the thing is, right, and with their media, right, everything that they do is to break you mentally, is a psychological thing. And, usually these are the people that come in, police abolitionists. I mean, well, they should be, because they was built off of that. But what I'm telling you is we need to have our own police where we defend ourselves and our own communities, right? Not be calling somebody else, because I'm pretty sure where you don't want our tax monies to stop coming to America, but our tax money is going to stop coming to America. We need to start funding and building our own schools and all of that stuff, not trying to find a way to assimilate with somebody where we don't have the same luxuries, where we're talking about, literally somebody could get choked out on camera, right? Which is why you say you joined, you know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what you would like to see, but like you said, you came on board once you started doing the George Floyd thing or whatever. But I mean, we should still be mad about not about Emmett Till, right? That's the whole point as far as the murder thing. But we aren't up on the laws, the actual practices, the people who are in charge making these decisions, because it was usually the person and they was under the guise of we want to help you, and some of them may even wanted to help you, but they was the ones coming over here with the Bible, you know what I'm saying, going to these places with the Bible to say, to preach this religion on them. And those were the people that got your guard down. Now, some of them may wanted to actually help them get to whatever they believe their God was. But there's always been missionaries used to get somebody's defenses down. So now you have a Bible in your hand and they're standing on your land. Right? That's because the police union is his own, thing. Is his own thing. Well, look, BZ Douglas, and you shouldn't take whatever I say personally, because, I know real life like this takes stuff publicly, but they're masochists. But what I'm telling you is, like, you should be in your circles having these conversations, because I can tell you I'm in those circles that you're in. And, well, at least on the internet anyway, because I physically can go, because then they'll see. But I hear the same things that they're saying. And you need to be having those conversations with them, because we've seen all of this kind of stuff before. I mean, we got people on here still revering John Brown, you know what I'm saying? Or talking about two Jews from, 1962, you know what I'm saying? But that's how little allies that we have. And it's not even about anybody, and it's not even about any personal thing about any person. Because I'm not saying BZ Douglas, and I don't know, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but a lot of Europeans, let's just say, take things personally, because that's called projection. And when you say something about a system, they say, okay, yeah, it is about a system. But then they'll say, well, you're attacking me personally, right? They'll say you're a racist against a white person then. Now, I know you wouldn't say that, but I also know that there are things that I can ask you that you wouldn't agree with. That is a reason why, right? How can you be in the same society? How can I be in the same society as somebody who thinks, like, who can we, the cop that killed Philando Castile, right? If you think that that person should be free and walking away like the American court system does, how can we have the same thing if we feel like he should be punished? That means we need to have our own court system. But I'm pretty sure you're going to say we need to have our own thing. But you still control the airports, you still control the food sources, you still control the education, you still control the money, you still control the media, you still control all of that stuff. And I know you're against the people you say you're against the people who are on there right now, but Jermaine, you say you can't build our own community. Yeah, I know you say you were on against them and stuff right now, but for us to start over, that would mean starting from scratch with who controls the media, who controls schools, who has the finances, where the money has come from, because your middle class, how you were able to get the opportunities that you have gotten, comes from a systemic thing, which you benefit from, right? But the lack of opportunities to us has literally been a systemic thing. We are literally the only group of people who have pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, but have been attacked by the American government. The only group of people to get bombed on this own soil by the American government, right? The Highway Act that built highways right through our communities of business, because even after slavery, it was the poor white people, not the rich ones, who were mad, saying, how that nigga have a piano in my house and I don't. And they were the ones committing all of this violence to run black people out of town. It wasn't the rich white people. So when we have a reset, that means you have to give up all of the stuff that you got. It ain't just starting from right now. Because when you start from even just from after the Civil War, right? The promise for the 40 acres and a mule, special field order number 15, where black people were supposed to get all of this land. But then when Reconstruction was over, they gave it back to the Confederacy. But now in 200 years, 300 years, 250 years, however long, now we're supposed to just start over and everything is just going to be fair and we're all in this together. But it's us who have always tried to be in this together. It's not us that you have to be preaching to. And I'm not saying you haven't been, but it's not us you need to be preaching to. We are the ones that say black and brown, right? We are the ones that say black and Asian. We were the ones that say black and Native Indian when it was on the reservations. Back in the day, we said black and Irish. We said black and Jewish. And every single one of those groups used us as a stepping stool to get accepted into whiteness, something that you would have been accepted into. You too, real life, you would have been accepted into it. And it's always on our end where you need to come and have these conversations. And I want y'all to notice that it's always with us on our ends where they come into these conversations, never with the people who they need to be having these conversations with. It's just us, whether they agree or they don't agree. But yeah, I appreciate all y'all for listening. So if y'all got anything to say, let me make sure I said everything I had to say first. And if anybody want to come on, I'm gonna put the link in and then give it a few minutes. Yeah, but that's what I mean, and it's not on him, but that's why I had to go out the way to say, I couldn't tell nobody to fund you when we can have a problem getting each other to fund ourselves. Because when people like Joe Biden, who told you not black if you don't vote for him, when they defund black schools but give funding to other groups, because it's always us needing to work with everybody else, people trying to get us to work with everybody else instead of getting everybody else to stop doing the stuff that they're doing, stop killing us, and stop acting the way that they act, right? But it's no excuse why that Joe Biden can defund the police or whatever, right? I mean, not the police, defund black schools, because we should be the ones funding those schools. But we're funding all of these organizations that are allowed to exist, because we saw what happened to the Black Panthers when they told black people arm themselves. Even individuals, we saw what happened to Ida B. Wells when when she told people to arm themselves. She said every black home should have a Winchester rifle in it. But today they tell you she was a feminist, but she stood up and got her paper burned down for standing up for black men, calling out white women. But they tell you she was a feminist and she tried to work with everybody, but she called them out. Marcus Garvey, how they attacked him. All of these organizations that have been for the people, because if you notice, every black leader and every one that has been for real liberation, they have not only been killed, they've tried to erase them from history. So we got to question how a group like the NAACP, who is, by the way, founded by Jewish people, are able to be around. We got to question why Black Lives Matter, who is funded by another white person, is able to stay around. But if we come on the internet and say, white boy, we're a black identity extremist, you got to question the people who are still in. All of the Europeans that came on here so far, I don't know if they listened to, he said he didn't, but I don't know if the other ones study what I say, because they rarely bring up, political parties, because it's nothing but a trap for them. But we're talking about, you know, a Democratic Party, a Republican Party. It does not matter, because it was the Democrats who was on board with the Republicans to get the Black Panthers out of there. But the NAACP, they haven't really done the same thing. And you got to start asking yourself, why? And even good old Joe is not even talking to Black Lives Matter now. But we got to stop funding other people if we can't fund ourselves just to talk about the issues that we in. You know what I'm saying? We have to fund the answer for our problems, the answer, the solution. And I'm not telling nobody nothing no different than George Washington told America, because guess what? He agrees with America, and George Washington and all of them, they were mad about taxes. Not that their children were being killed, not that their language, their identity, and all of that stuff was being taken. Not even their self-autonomy was being taken. They were mad they were being taxed because Britain gave them money to kill the Native Americans. And Britain wanted their money back. And what did they do? They went in there and they shot it up. You know, they didn't shoot it up, but they had the Boston Tea Party, which led to the Boston Massacre. And do you know how those British soldiers got off for killing white Americans? By blaming it on a black man. That's how we know about Crispus Attucks, because John Adams blamed it on him, and the British soldiers got off. But the point is, they were able to stand up and attack whatever it was for what their beliefs were. And when Donald Trump got out of office, they told you if Donald Trump get out of office, we're arming up and we're going to storm the Capitol. And guess what they did? They armed up and stormed the Capitol. But guess what? When Dylan Roof went into a church and shot a bunch of old people while they were praying for him, they said they forgave him. When somebody busted in somebody's house and shot him while he was eating ice cream on his own couch, right? We hugged him. We forgave him. Right? When somebody harms our children, we hug them. We forgive them. And then we wonder why we still had the same press conferences Emmett Till mom had in 1954 that we still have in 2021. Because we fund our own oppression. And at the end of the day, we are all we got. Now, the guy that was in here earlier, he needs to go talk to real life. You know what I'm saying? Them two need to have that conversation, because we already know. And like I said, you can come on here. I'm cool. I'm not tripping about him coming on here. I'm just saying. But you got to be aware of people pushing agendas, and anybody still pushing a certain camp or ideology on you, like the Democrats or something. You got to look at them suspect, because we got enough history. This is the information is. We got enough history to know. It's just, what are we going to do? Because, the guy that came on here, it sounds good. Maybe he could come to our communities or whatever when there's an all black community. But will he be really willing to come to our community, at nighttime or whatever? And I say that he would, because we only really issue these punishments out on ourselves. Because Blackophobia is not only something that other people have, it's something that we have picked up as well. But, we just got to focus and do better and start, loving ourselves. We don't need no white savior. We got to get over this white savior complex. We are all we got. And we have built communities and all of this stuff time and time again. But we got to go back and see why it keeps failing. And it wasn't just because they had guns and all of this other stuff, because there has been a lot of successful times we have defended ourselves. But what made us, you know what I'm saying, want to be a part of that? Because I'm pretty sure the guy that came on here, he would disagree with Plessy versus Ferguson, which is separate but equal. But we not saying anything different. Right? That's facts, Jermaine. We ain't in this alone, you know what I'm saying? But when they ask you or tell you that you are prejudiced, you are racist, you are wrong for saying the things that we say or believe in the things that we say, tell them see Plessy versus Ferguson. Because that's what they was telling you when they was sticking Rockwilders on you to bite us in our genitals, right? Women, children, men, when we was trying to go to their restaurants. And we still wonder how these groups are able to be around from the early 1900s when they was telling people not to speak out against America during World War II. But all of these groups were in charge of the integration movement. And the NAACP pushing this integration movement when they had the opportunity. To get equal funding, which what we need right now to this very single day. That's why we got to be careful of all of these organizations and support what we are building, right? And when I say support what we are building, I'm talking about what you are building. I need to support you. What I'm doing, you need to support me. Because we are all in our own lane doing the things that we need to do. I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but maybe you are. And we need to support each other because they will get funding from each other. And when somebody tell you that, oh, you're wrong for doing what you do, tell them see Plessy versus Ferguson. Because we don't want integration. It doesn't mean equal because I have your connects. Because I have faith in my own people and what we can do and the connects I can have by building with us. Like Blue be saying, we are a family. Right. Jermaine said, cut the check. That's a fact. But that won't happen until we realize we are a family and stick together as a cohesive unit. Because at the end of the day, despite their ideologies, right? You seen the two, I say white boys that came on here. Two different ideologies. But they both agree America needs to stay. They love America. It could be better, but they agree on America. But I know all of us agree that we need to build our own, whatever we call it, and we need to love that, and we need to love each other. Despite our difference in ideology. But yeah, like Blue said, like and share. We are coming together. Be a part of the movement and email us at the b1list@gmail.com. Because we're trying to build this organization where, and it's not that you have to give up your ideology, you not have to give up your goals. You do. And Blue, you can come on if you want to say anything before I close out. Right. Victimizers never admit to the trauma they cause upon their victim. They want them to just forget past transgressions and ignore lingering ramifications and after effects. But you notice that's only with one group of people. And that's why I talk about people like Ben Shapiro, because he's against critical race theory, but not once have I heard him say nothing about teaching about the Holocaust. Now, once have I heard him say anything about stop giving Jewish people reparations, because until a Jewish person is willing to break off some of those reparations, then they ain't got nothing to say to me. And like, the white boy said earlier, he was kind of fumbling and going across that. Well, and I said, were you willing to sacrifice or willing to give up? He eventually said, sure, but he said it was a vague question. He didn't really want to say, I wouldn't give up anything in particular that's mine. But guess what? We done gave up everything that is ours. And if you want to have that future of America, like you said, you got to start all the way from scratch. Give up everything that you got, that you want. But who's going to do that? Ain't nobody going to do that. But, again, you can email the b1list@gmail.com. Like you said, like you email that, we'll set up a video conference, a video call. We'll make sure that we discuss all the stuff that we got to discuss. And it's not like you have to change your ideology or your mission. The point is to support each other's mission, to support each other, what we're doing. Right. We have to fight to get our slice of pie. And it's not like it's not supposed to be that way. Don't get me wrong. Because who's going to give up control of what they really have? Who's really going to do that? And can you blame them? But you have to, and when I say you, I mean all of us, have to respond with more urgency than they do to maintain the position that they are in. We have to respond with more urgency to get out of it. But right now, they're responding with more urgency in every single level. And they're coming at you in every single angle. And if you're not focused and first, instead of getting caught up on, I'm transgender first, I'm Black American or American first, I'm Christian first. Until you say I'm Black first, I'm race first, whatever you say, I'm that first, that's what has the power. And we have to have enough of us to say that. Because like real life said, I worked hard for everything I got. I'm not giving away, because that person, real life, needs to talk to the other person. You see what we're dealing with? But they're going to come and talk to us. And each group is going to do what they have to do to maintain their position. So what are we going to do to get out of it? Because, I'm pretty sure Dave Chappelle not worried about being canceled or whatever. Because, he can stay in his own lane. But, people like Nick Cannon is worried about being canceled. LeBron James worried about being canceled. I mean, what are they first? And I'm not questioning either of those two particular brothers. But how can they cancel somebody unless you've given up your power? But, at the end of the day, we are all we got, man. And like I said, if you want to contact us, go to the b1list@gmail.com. We got to put our ideas together, man. And I appreciate all of y'all for listening. And, I appreciate the white boy for coming on. And, they got more courage than real life. You know what I'm saying? I would say that. Because he already is on here, but he's scared to come on here because he knows that he's full of it. So, but as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.